Now, according to the Office for National Statistics, marriage rates in England and Wales are at their lowest level ever. The revelations are seen as a potentially pivotal moment for the institution of marriage as the number of people getting hitched continues to decline while the cohabiting and single population increases. So is marriage now an outdated institution, or is it still the bedrock of family life? Well, here to discuss those issues are Pastor Clement from the Eternity Church, Barrister Dr. Charlotte Proudman, Michaela Hyde from the Marriage Foundation, and still with us is Yasmin Alibi-Brown. Charlotte, marriage provides stability, both partners have legal rights, emotional security you have. There are so many great things from marriage. This is worrying, isn't it, hearing this?
No, not at all. I mean, as a divorce barrister, I see these cases all the time. In fact, divorce is one of the most acrimonious times that people can go through. In fact, in a case not so long ago, I saw a husband who shaved the cat to spite the wife through the divorce process.
Yeah. You're looking at the negative. Obviously, you see the divorce side of things. But what about there are so many happily married people?
Well, I think that obviously that's diminishing. And I think that with great expectations with marriage, and we know that there are, particularly with the division of labour, that tends to be when you have the breakdown of marriage. So the gender roles really come into play where women are expected to do more of the childcare. And these discussions don't tend to happen before the marriage. That's what I see in divorce cases. But there are other ways of regulating your relationship now, like cohabitation agreements and civil partnership agreements. And I think that we need to look more focused at this, where individuals can make decisions about how they want to live their lives.
So Michaela, people are going into marriages and then and not knowing what they're going into and then realising that there's all these gender divides and things they have to do.
Well, I think we're looking at a minority still. I mean, 80% of the population are married, so marriage has not had its day whatsoever. It's still strong. 80% of 20-somethings still want to be married.
Hang on, 80% of the population are married? What
yes.
do you mean? 80%
of
people
all
together?
Couples, all couples are married, yeah. So 80% of all couples are married. So it's still something that is thriving. We know that the marriage rate has been declining. That's, in actual fact, it isn't brand new news. It is something that we're seeing and has been happening for a while.
Who's that according to? 80% of couples are married. I mean,
that's some statistics that our research director has provided for me, and he does all of our research and looks at the background of all of this kind of stuff. So that's all couples. We focus at Marriage Foundation largely on couples who have children. So we're looking at family breakdown, the impact of family breakdown, and we still can see that marriage is the environment that is the best in terms of bringing up children. That's not to say it can't work in other ways, but our statistics show us that. So, for example, there's children growing up with families and so on. If they are part of a couple who the parents are cohabiting, only 19% will still be together once they are when they get to the age of 15, whereas 3/4 of married couples stay together.
Okay, so when you look at those statistics, I mean, it's obviously better to be in a marriage, isn't it, if you've got children?
Well, I can't make a judgment on all of this, and I think we have to be very careful not to be judgmental about people who live together absolutely faithfully well and bring up wonderful children. I've been married most of my life, but I still understand why. You know, look, we can not over-romanticize marriage. We have a prime minister who doesn't understand anything about marriage, it seems to me. We have a royal family where most of the royal family have been divorced and in messy. And I do agree with you that children suffer. But for me, it's commitment. We have to teach more men, particularly, though some women are also doing this, that when you commit to a person, whether it is using marriage or not, you commit. And you remain strong, and you remain loyal.
But Pastor Clement, it's about commitment. It's not the marriage doesn't matter. It's the commitment.
Well, no, because I think going back on what my sister just said there, men do understand commitment, which is why a lot of men don't want to get married, because they understand that once they do get married, this is something they're committed to. And I've performed 50 weddings in my time. 48 of them are still married. Because we do such a thing called pre-marriage counselling, where we go through what marriage is like.
But that's not normal, is it? I mean,
well, it's normal for me. It's in my world, in my sphere of society, it's normal. I say cohabitation is a poor imitation of a marriage. And I'd also go further to say that actually it's a contradiction in terms. You're saying we want to be committed to each other, but we kind of want to leave the back door open in case things don't work out, and we can easily separate one from another.
Charlotte, so we want to be committed to each other, but we want to just have an option to get out just in case things are wrong. That doesn't sound like a great environment to bring up kids, does it?
It's exactly the same with marriage.
Exactly.
Marriage is very hard to get out.
It's harder in terms of the emotional toll and the financial pressure of dividing your assets, but if anything, that's worse then.
But doesn't that put you off? You think, oh, well, I'm not going to jump ship. I mean, every marriage goes through difficult periods. And if you know it's going to be difficult to get out of it, you probably think, well, I might just stick with it.
And that's part of the problem, particularly when you have children, because children can end up living in an abusive, emotionally abusive household. And you see this in many situations where you move from divorce proceedings, I think children proceedings. And I think when we think about marriage, we have to remember where this comes from. And it's usually a woman being given away as a chattel, as property from her father to her husband.
Most women want to get married.
Hang on, let Charlotte finish.
Wearing a white wedding dress to show your virginity.
So it does seem outdated. It seems outdated, does it not, Pastor?
I don't know what you mean by outdated.
Well,
it's a foundation of society. In my community, one of the major problems we have is couples not being married and trying to have families. It causes lots of complications. And I got married 23 years ago. And when I got married, there was a sense of this is for life. And what that means is when you do go through difficult times, when you feel that you might not want to go forward because you are married, you made the commitment in front of your friends, your family, in front of a minister, it's an added incentive to stick it out and stick it through.
No, I don't
And what I would say for men, hold on a second,
Okay.
for men especially, I would say to you, any cohabitating couple, I think it's the woman who is getting the raw end of the deal. She wants to know that this guy is going to be faithful and committed to her. And marriage is an extra layer that helps that to
go
happen.
back to your original introduction, which is really interesting, that fewer young people are getting married. We have to look at the other circumstances too. Many of them have lived with divorced parents. Many of them feel uncertain about the future. They don't have their own homes. They cannot commit in the way they would like to because their future is very different from what ours was. And I do not agree that marriage stops men or women. I've had six friends this year who, for absolutely, in my view, tried to unreasonable reasons, left their marriages.
I'm in the business of marriage people. Divorce is very
left
rare.
their children in total chaos. So I don't think marriage... I did it because I believe in public vows. But I don't think it's a superior way.
I think in some ways what we're talking about here, we're talking about different opinions, different viewpoints. Marriage isn't about an ideology. When we look at our research here at Marriage Foundation, we look at the stats. We know that cohabiting couples are 3 times as likely to separate compared with married couples. Now, I know couples who are cohabiting and it's working and it's brilliant and I'm really happy for them. But on the whole, I do a podcast with my husband called The M Word. We talk about the forever conversation. Most cohabiting couples won't have had that conversation. They want to see how it goes. Marriage, by its very nature, you have that conversation about the future, about forever. Divorce rates are going down. Now, you may say, well, fewer people are marrying, but the reason that they are going down is that men actually are more committed. There's no social pressure to marry. So when they are marrying, they are working and lasting. So, in fact, couples marrying today, they have a much reduced chance of that breaking up. 35% of couples breaking up, who married today will break up back to the same levels as 1960.
OK, let's check out what people are saying at home. Ria.
Thanks, Sean. Anthony's got in touch to say, nobody enters a life-changing commitment without careful thought. Marriage has and always will be the choice of those who truly know the meaning of companionship. Eden says, it's not marriage that's going out of fashion, it's religion. And Tracy on Facebook says, I've never wanted to get married. However, my partner and I will get a heterosexual civil partnership as soon as we can. Andrew thinks marriage has suffered from being classed as a religious invention, whereas marriage as we know it, he says, was promoted by the Victorians as being the best institution for a stable society by giving security to children. And finally, Mark says, marriage is an antiquated, outdated institution propped up by religious ideology. Considering the high costs involved, it's no wonder that many people are rejecting such a pointless ritual. There you go, Sean, from one married person to another.
Yeah, it wouldn't be nice to say that we're both married, but I mean, I see both sides, and Charlotte, I've just got to put that to you, that this idea that actually nowadays there are lots of ways, lots of temptations, probably a lot more than there were 20 or 30 years ago, lots of ways of getting out. So I'm thinking of apps, you know, all these dating apps, I'm thinking of the internet. We need, at this stage, we need something that's going to bind us together, don't we? Doesn't that show that marriage actually is more important than it ever has been?
Well, I think that ideology in terms of you need to be with one person for the rest of your life, this needs to be the long-term relationship, is so outdated.
But for kids,
millennials don't think that way anymore. You're in the relationship for the period that you're happy in terms of having mutual expectations and fulfilling those expectations. Why remain in a relationship, even when you've worked at it, if you're unhappy? It's bad for you and it's bad for the children. And I think having this view that you have to stick at it no matter what is the wrong kind of preconception to have for anyone.
I would disagree with that. I think a lot of people that I meet want to spend the rest of their life with one person. You know, before I was a Christian, I played the field. I know what that was like. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't fulfilling. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with one person in the good times and the bad times. And before we got married, we understood this was going to be a lifelong commitment, for better, for worse, richer, for poorer.
But you got lucky.
Sickness and no, I didn't get lucky.
No,
it's not luck.
Yeah, no, but you obviously picked the right person. What if
there
someone
is no
picks the
such
wrong
thing as luck.
person?
There is no such thing as luck.
Do you stay in a relationship where it's not going well?
There is no such thing as luck.
Come on.
Okay, I think it's an absolute fallacy to think that you're lucky if it works. It's about investing time into that.
Absolutely.
Inevitably, some relationships won't work. I think we can all accept that that's the truth, and there'll be all sorts of situations where that's the case.
Women of a certain age.
We have to work at a relationship for it to work. And I think often we talk about divorce and messy divorce. Do you know one of the biggest reasons that people divorce is just simply drifting apart.
Yeah.
They stop investing, they stop caring. And that's why we're concerned, because this isn't good for the kids long term. This isn't good for the couple or for the children.
I don't think we should put any pressure on married couples or cohabiting people to take responsibility for the stability of society. I don't think that's
but their own children, though. Their own children.
The group that is grown in asking for divorce are older women who have put up with a lot in this marriage. Put up and put up and put up. And finally, when the kids are gone, that's when they talk about their unhappinesses.
That's an interesting point, isn't it?
But divorce rates have plummeted over the last 3 decades.
This group is going up.
They have plummeted, and at the same time, the number of lone parents has doubled in those decades.
But just deal with that one point, that older women, they get to the end of the marriage, the kids leave home, and they think, I'm not putting up with this rubbish anymore.
Well, you can work at that.
And they've been in an unhappy marriage, and they've stuck with it. That's a fair point, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course that's going to happen. There will always be, we'll all have little stories of different people that we've come across that we know. We're talking about big statistics here, big numbers.
No, but that,
one of the most common,
this
can I
is
just
a
throw
big
this point in as well?
But it's still a small number relative to the number of people who are married. Inevitably, people will get
But you haven't answered that question, that they've put up with it for all their lives, suffered.
You're going to have to be brief with that.
If they have suffered and they need to separate, then that's what they need to do. I'm
Can I
not
just
saying...
make this point? One of the most common characteristics of those young men involved in knife crime is that they come from homes where parents are not married. That is a major problem.
That's opening a whole can of worms. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We are out of time.
Boris.
Thank you all very much indeed.